Today, I wanted to go over another little section from one of the books, the most recent book that I wrote called The Business Bottleneck. Now, the conceit, the idea of this book is that if we improve the way that we do software, right, we get those teams that are product driven, that can release their software every week or every day, and they're constantly experimenting with and finding out the best way to not only implement a feature, but what the issue is in the first place that you're solving. They're working on a product. That then the business side needs to catch up with the way that IT is done, and that in fact, if the business side isn't engaged, then you create a new bottleneck, which is the involvement of the business people to kind of direct what they want the software to do and respond to the way the new capabilities they have instead of them being kind of older, slower cycles that they had. That is a kind of butchered up extended description of the book, but you can get a copy of it for free. If you go to tanzutalk.com, you can find links to go get it. And also, let's see, right up there, you'll be able to click on something, a little thing, and you'll see where you can actually, you'll click on that, you can go download the book directly. Hopefully you'll enjoy it. I think it's great. Anyhow, also at the end of the video, there'll be a link to download it for free as well. So let's jump to one section that seems a little like simplistic, but I think it's to the point of the business sort of needing to get more involved in things. We'll skip past these other things here, and then let's get to this point. Now, I sort of thought about this part about how it's important for people outside of IT, for managers, your C-level people, whoever are making these decisions, especially people in finance who are always a blocker for changing things, right, with the way they want to do business cases. And to be fair, the responsibility that they bring and are required to bring to the process. They're often someone who needs to understand the underlying technology, how it's changing, and how it makes things better if you just sort of let it. But I think if you are in a managerial, especially a senior managerial position in an organization that's doing digital transformation, really any organization that's trying to improve the way it does its business, and you're not in IT, or if you are in IT, and you don't really understand the modern way of doing software, I don't know, you need to learn, right? Like, this is a core tool that you're going to have ongoing to, again, be like tech companies. Not only innovate and come up with better ways of doing things like these tech companies, but also probably one of the main things you're interested in to kind of achieve the valuations that these companies have, right? And just like you would think about any other part of your business that's vital, that's core, how it functions, and hopefully you know how that works, right? Like if you're insurance, hopefully you understand the business side of insurance and how, you come up with policies, that's a thought technology, and how you figure out how much you can pay out, like the operations, the way everything runs. Or if you're in retail, you understand supply chains and how you do pricing and marketing, all these aspects that are technologies of how your business runs, but not necessarily software. But similarly, software is going to be one of your primary, if not the primary channel, the way you interact with your customer. I mean, that's not entirely fair. Like being in three-dimensional meat space is going to be a primary channel, but it's going to be probably one of the most important primary channels, especially for growth and retaining customers. Then you should probably understand how software works, how tech works. Now, what this means, there's two kind of tips to doing this, right? I mean, I should probably understand a lot of things that I don't understand, but at least I can kind of go over some recommendations of things to do. Now, one of the things that is obvious once done, but it's good to figure out if you actually do this, as with all obvious things, is that all the way up to the board level, right? You should probably, just like you'll have someone that's expert at finance, someone that's expert at HR or people management and happiness assurance, whatever you call HR nowadays. You'll probably have some operational people who know about the business that you have, and on and on and on. You're going to want to have someone who is probably technical, right? Like, or at least who has had a lot of experience, good experience and bad experience, leading a software-driven company, right? Someone who knows what to expect, who knows the questions to ask of people when, you do your budgeting, you do your sort of acquisitions, or you're just thinking about how you're operating, kind of head up those projects to go in and start to modernize things. But someone who has firsthand experience of the good things of doing software, the bad things of how software is done, and really, again, brings that expertise at the board level to make sure that your organization is not only functioning in a good way, but transforming and maintaining the way that it's doing software well. So someone like that, as the recommendation usually goes, is you as a CIO or a technical person or whoever, they should be engaging on kind of a quarterly basis with the appropriate people to make sure things are progressing well and that they're not kind of getting slacked off on. Now, another thing that an old friend of mine, they are older, but a friend of mine that I've known for a while, he told me that in an organization he was at, he was kind of a senior technical type, and a new executive came into the business. And this executive knew that they needed to understand software and technology. So what this executive did is they found what I call a secret nerd, right? Like a lot of times people, especially in highly paid executive layers, right? Like they want to show their value, right? How come they're being paid so much? They're given so much authority. And it's sort of like, for better or worse, usually neutral. You can't really show weakness or ignorance because it brings down your valuation and it makes people question why you're doing that instead of other people. Show whatever. That's just the way things are. So yet you do need to learn these things. So you should figure out a way to get yourself a secret nerd, right? And what this friend of mine would do is maybe doing it on Sunday afternoon is a bad idea, but whatever, is they would have, a 90, even 120-minute call every Sunday where my friend, the secret nerd, just had a curriculum for going over how the technology that was relevant in their business unit worked and really brought them up to speed. And, that obviously tampers down, kind of lowers as you learn more and more. But you continue to have that kind of tutorial meeting with people so that you're constantly learning as that executive about how your business functions. And again, equally importantly is like, it's not so much that you shouldn't trust your staff who's telling you things, but so that you know how to properly delegate things, you understand what they're saying, and also so that you know how to kind of push them into areas they may not be interested in addressing. If you understand how software functions, how it can function, the bad things that happen, you can always be asking about and managing around that. Now, as a case in point, technical debt is, I think, a great example for all sorts of things. But just briefly, technical debt the metaphor is great, but it's shortcuts, more or less, debt, shortcuts that you made in the short term to have short-term accomplishments, right? And it's also sort of maintenance and gardening, if you will, that you've neglected on your software stack, right? So an extremely simple example is that you might have one version of a platform that you installed and you got it up and running and it was great. You had all the functionality and the performance and stuff that you wanted. But every year when it came to upgrading that to not only getting the new functionality, but also getting bug fixes and just more, it often comes down to functionality and speed, but you kind of, your organization decided not to upgrade it, right? They didn't want to spend the money or take the time. And then after several years of this, you end up with an outdated stack of running your software, right? Or another example is that you might be, with your software, you might layer more and more things on top of it and make more custom integrations and UIs to integrate with all the weird backend services that you have, instead of spending the time to have kind of a common universal way of accessing those backend services. And what you end up with is every time you want to integrate a new backend service, like for example, if you wanted to do some omni-channel retailing stuff, You wanted to, in a matter of months, enable delivery to the door, which means you had to integrate with some CRM system and integrate with a loyalty thing. But you haven't spent the time to make that easy, right? Like, it's always been difficult. And so therefore, it takes a long time to integrate with those systems and work with them. And these are types of tech debt that come about. And if you don't understand what tech debt is, what technical debt is, how it accumulates, and what needs to happen every year to address it, and why it's valuable to spend all this time and money kind of gardening your software estate, because then you're going to end up in a bad position where you're in a meeting. You're like, we have to enable this new thing. And everyone's they're gonna say, ooh, that's gonna take a long time. Integrating with the CRM system to get customer information, it's always a problem. We always talk about how we need to rewrite that, but we never really come around to it. So it's gonna take 2 months of extra work. And you think like, when I use Facebook or Google or whatever app, they add new features all the time. Why can't we just do that? Software's easy. You can just do things. But again, that's an example of it's because you sort of weren't apprised of or thinking about what technical debt is and how important it is to manage. And also, as a side note, we do a lot of work doing application modernization, which is a lot of that is really cleaning up the tech debt that people have and getting people in that position where they can add features more rapidly and kind of catch them up on that. And then start to do that work of, year after year, prioritizing the software that they're doing and make sure that it's a good, healthy running thing, right? Factories are always a good analogy, but you can think of, factories that you're hopefully constantly improving and seeking out a better way to do things, because you realize that an investment that you make into a factory, an investment that you make into brand, right, to use something else, it may not have sort of this immediate payoff, but you understand that you're doing that maintenance, right? It's my favorite analogy. It's like flossing your teeth. It doesn't really seem to have any payoff each time you do it, and it's really annoying and tedious. But if you keep that habit up and you do it, it's going to have a long-term payoff that enables all sorts of other things. So that's the point that I wanted to go over. Find yourself a secret nerd. Make sure that you're up to speed on the way things are going, and just learn how software functions. You can start with tech debt. That would be a great thing to kind of understand briefly and start asking people about and start to use as a way to figure out how software is done. So like I said, you can download this book for free. If you go to tanzutalk.com, you can find a link to it. And also, if you're interested in kind of talking through some of these issues, you can schedule some office hours with us, whether it's an hour, a half day, whatever it may be. And we'll walk through a lot of the kind of, let's call it strategic thinking, right? Not just like a demo of software, getting things up and running, which we definitely will do as well. But we can start to kind of walk you through what it means to get really good at software and run your business with software and kind of think through these issues. If you're interested in that, there should be a little link up here you can click on. Or you can, again, go to tanzutalk.com and find a link to it, along with the full show notes for this episode, with a link of downloading that book and, I guess, an archive of the video. Not really many other relevant links. And with that, I'm probably going to take the rest of the week off on Thursday and Friday, because it's Thanksgiving back in the States. So I don't think I'll see you until Monday, a couple of days from now. But you can enjoy the archives if you're really desperate. I'll see everyone next time. Bye-bye.